Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to What Women Want with Judy Goss, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in once again to What Women Want Talk Radio. I'm Judy Goss, and I'm here with my co-host, Kristin West, and our show tonight is Reeling in Your Focus. It seems like a lot of us are juggling more than one career, more than one kid, and perhaps more than one love in your life. Who knows? And I don't know how we all keep track of it all. I know sometimes we don't. And better yet, though, are you focusing on the right things, the things that are best for you? I sure would love to know. I have a few careers, a couple of kids myself, and a stepson, so 3. Sometimes I feel like I'm going absolutely nuts, just really trying to focus on one thing. And from what I hear, it's really important to get that talent honed to be the most successful that you can be in your professional life and in your personal life. And Christine Hassler and Nancy Ganzekaufer are the guests tonight who are going to fill you in on how we can reel in that focus for every part of your life, not just your career. In the meantime, I want to thank you, our listeners. I do this every show. I feel like it's so important because after 3 years of airing What Women Want Talk Radio here on LA Talk Radio, we have passed 750,000 downloads. Oh my gosh. We just love every single show, and we hope you do also. And if you want to listen to past shows, go to LA Talk Radio's website archives, latalkradio.com, or subscribe to us on iTunes or Google Play. You'll hear some of our celebrity guests who have been with us in the past year, like former O.J. Simpson prosecutor Marcia Clark, 5-time Olympian Jackie Edwards, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff author Dr. Christine Carlson, and just recently former Today Show anchor Jenna Wolfe was on. Remember that daredevil? And even the co-founder of Guilt stopped by a little while ago to tell us how she built Guilt to become a billion-dollar business in just 3 years. So we always have fascinating conversation with the most stellar, awesome women, I have to say, and tonight is no exception. Okay, a little bit about my background. Besides being the host of this incredible show, I am also a TV host, a regular contributor on NBC and Fox. I'm an entrepreneur. I founded the nationally acclaimed What Women Want networking group 5.5 years ago, almost 6 years now, with several live chapters spanning from coast to coast. I'm a St. Martin's Press author and a freelance writer for New York Lifestyles magazine. And the most important job of all, I'm the mom of twin girls who are now almost 13 years old. I can't believe it. I have 7 days left of partial sanity until they turn 13. What Women Want Networking, my company, the same name as our show, What Women Want, is having our first national women's conference called Spirit of Women in Atlanta at the Westin Peachtree Plaza. It's the Westin downtown, October 7th through 8th. It's a day-and-a-half event. You go on spiritofwomenconference.com for the early bird tickets. They're on sale now, 30% off until July 15th only. Now, the conference is featuring VIP sponsor Women for One. The founder of womenforone.com, Kelly McNellis, has millions of subscribers on her website and is running a workshop along with the founder of Revenue Breakthrough, Monica Shaw. She's our money expert. And the founder of souljourneys.ca, business energetics expert, Jennifer Longmore. We are also so thrilled and excited to have keynote Dr. Robbie Ludwig from New York City. She's been on the show a couple of times also. She's an award-winning TV reporter and psychotherapist at the conference also, along with Melissa Carter, the famed radio show host down in Atlanta, the first openly gay radio show host in the country. Go Gay Pride, love that. So if you're interested in more information, please go to spiritofwomenconference.com. Okay, that's enough of me plugging all my businesses. Let's get down to focusing on Miss Kristin West. Kristin is my amazing co-host of the show. She's an award-winning actress and producer, and soon-to-be radio show host. Her film, Seeking Valentina, has just been announced as an official selection at the Hollywood Dreams Film Festival in Las Vegas. She can also be seen in the upcoming films Sound, The Spirit Room, and Hell's Kitty, all due out later this year. Kristin, what's the scoop in the glamorous acting world of Hollywood? Every time I look at Facebook, you're walking another red carpet.
I have a lot of fun. On Father's Day
Yes.
weekend, I was at Beverly Hills for the Concours d'Elegance, which is the Beverly Hills Vintage Car Show. And I got to see some really nifty cars, which was cool. So that was sort of my red carpet moment last week. And of course, we're always creating fun here at the studio and getting the word out about what we're up to.
Yeah, totally. And I think we're going to cover the entire country. I think you and I are going to just go around the entire country from satellite on LA Talk Radio every Wednesday. We're covering the distance there. Our show tonight is about reeling in your focus. And I know you've got a few things going on with your producing and directing and acting and all that. So you're probably a good target for this conversation. I would think that acting probably takes the most focused out of all of that, but you tell me which one and what you do to kind of, reel that in.
I have a little tool I use every day that I call the sheets. And it's kind of like a bullet journal. It's where I check off, did I do my social media promotion today? Did I promote my blog today? Did I promote the radio show today? Did I practice something today? Did I do some creative writing today? And I make sure that I check off at least 75% of that so that I stay focused. And then there's different kinds of focus within, focus. There's a different kind of focus required for learning lines versus calculating out-of-state spend on a film for incentive purposes. So, focus is an interesting topic for me. You have to really exercise your brain in different ways.
Yeah, for sure. Now, so do you, on your list, do you make times for these certain things, or you just make sure that it gets done in that day, or how do you do that? Because I find that if I don't have times down, it gets a little out of hand. Like I kind of put things off, and then I go back to the list and I make it for the next day, the things I didn't get done.
I have two things going on with mine. I don't really commit to times because my day can change at any moment. Last Thursday, I got called at the last minute to a set, so my day just kind of went in a totally different direction. So I keep everything pretty flexible as a daily, but I do have things that I require myself to do weekly, and I check those off. And then I have my ongoing projects kind of on the top of this sheet, my weekly and ongoing stuff on the top, so that I keep track of what's getting done and what's not getting done.
And of course, the radio show is close to the top, right?
It's always at the top. Are you kidding me?
All right. Well, why don't you bring on our first guest? Because I can't wait to get this conversation going, because I feel like so many facets of my life can benefit from this information. So,
no, I totally agree. Kristin Hassler is a best-selling author of 3 books, most recently Expectation Hangover, Free Yourself from Your Past, Change Your Present, and Get What You Really Want. She left her successful job as a Hollywood agent to pursue a life she could be passionate about, and for over a decade, she's been a keynote speaker, a retreat facilitator, a spiritual psychologist, and a life coach, and the host of a top-rated podcast, Over It and On With It. I love the sound of that. She's been teaching and inspiring people around the world, and Kristin believes that once we get out of our own way, we can show up to make the meaningful impact we are here to make. And she's online at KristinHassler.com. Welcome to the show, Kristin. How are you tonight?
I'm great. Excited to dive into this conversation.
Well, I'm excited to dive into it with you. So you were an agent in Hollywood, and then you became a life coach and a focus expert. How did that happen?
I think we have enough time. It was one of those things, you want to give God or the universe a good laugh, tell them your plans. So my plan was to be this great Hollywood agent and run Hollywood. I eventually wanted to run a movie studio, whatever. And then my life kind of fell apart at the ripe old age of 25. I just hated my job, and I thought the solution would be quitting it. But then when I quit my job, I lost kind of my identity because I was an overachiever who defined herself by her career. And no matter what box I checked off, the promotion, the money, the whatever, I would celebrate for a second, and then it would be like on to the next thing. So I was never content. I was never satisfied. Enough was never enough. And I drove myself by being really hard on myself. And that's sneaky. A lot of us fall into that trap. Like, being hard on ourselves works to a certain extent. It makes us get stuff done, but it's very, very depleting. I didn't know at the time that that's how I was driving myself. I was just kind of focused on, what's the next thing that can make me feel a certain way. I was very externally referenced, wanted something to make me feel a certain way. So after I quit the job, I ended up being estranged from my family for a while. I went into tons of debt. Trying to keep up a Hollywood lifestyle without a Hollywood expense account or salary is not too easy. And then I got diagnosed with an undiagnosable autoimmune disorder on top of dealing with a history of depression since I was 11 years old. And then got engaged, and 6 months before my wedding, my fiance unexpectedly dumped me. And so I lost everything that I clung to for security, safety, and identity, career, money, family.
And what age was this?
It all happened between 25 and 26. And I had a very dark night of the soul, bathroom floor moment where I just was at my lowest point, and I had a bit of an epiphany, a bit of an awakening, a bit of a, I would call it a God moment, where I just felt this unbelievable amount of love and compassion kind of flood through me. And it was very profound. And it was kind of everything that I was seeking from these external things I started to feel internally. And I made a promise that night to myself that if I figured my way out of kind of the depths of despair I was in and could feel more of that feeling I just felt, I would dedicate my life to helping other people do the same. And that's what I help people do, get out of suffering, get out of stuckness, and into first an internal place of self-acceptance and peace and focus, and then from there create the life that is most aligned for us. Because a lot of times what we think we want is more based on our insecurities, our ego-based needs, our needs to please, versus really knowing what's truly, truly aligned for us and what's in our highest good. And often we have to go through suffering to figure that out.
Well, that sounds like a whirlwind of crazy and then hopeful. That's an amazing story. I what most resonated with me when I was just perusing your website is expectation, and how expectations can color our lives and cause a lot of suffering. And you have something you call an expectation hangover. What is that, and how does that relate to focus?
I was an expert in them for so long, and it's the name of my last book, and I define it as one of three things. Either life doesn't go according to your plans. You plan to be married at a certain age, it doesn't work. You're pregnant at a certain age. You plan to get, you plan this great launch of a new business, and it doesn't turn out like you planned. Or life does go according to your plan, but you don't feel like you thought you would. You finally get that great job or get in that great relationship, and wait a second, where's the fulfillment and love and creativity that I hoped for? Or life just throws you an unexpected curveball. You get dumped, you get laid off, you get diagnosed with an illness. And it's when life kind of floods us with this disappointment because it wasn't according to our expectation, and we're left with kind of hangover-like symptoms. There's a sense of regret. There's a lack of motivation. We're hard on ourselves. Our head hurts. Maybe not physically, but we're in overthinking and trying to fix it. We're spinning in confusion, and we just want the feeling to be over. But why I'm so passionate about expectation hangovers is because in every disappointment, in every adversity, is not just a silver lining, because that can be kind of a bit of a bypass. There's a healing opportunity. Oftentimes we go through disappointment because it's giving us an opportunity to heal kind of a deeper issue from our past, to heal a misunderstanding, to heal an old hurt that we've been carrying around, so we can start creating and attracting different kinds of experiences.
Geez, I've learned more in the past 5 minutes than I thought I could ever learn probably most of my life.
Right. Yeah, I'm in the same place, Judy.
Geez, I'm like, whoa.
Right.
This is great stuff. I mean, you have such a way of explaining things and really getting to the heart of it, which I guess is the perfect guest for the show, Reeling in Your Focus. Go ahead, Kristin. I'm sorry. I just got a little taken away there.
Well, you talk about the checklist, and I totally understand that, because when I was fresh out of college, it was like everybody was in a race to the altar. And everybody was in a race to the perfect job. And I have to tell you, I felt left out. I felt like and I had my own plan, and I was kind of working my own dreams, but I was not checking those boxes in as fast as everybody around me. And
you're so lucky. Yeah, you are. I mean, I got married at 24. I was divorced by the time I was 28. I mean, that was kind of what I was supposed to do. And you're kind of lucky you didn't, go that way of the expectation, type of thing.
Well, as I told Dr. Netter a few weeks ago, I was too intimidating for some of these guys. But I felt left out on the check boxes, and there's still some check boxes I haven't checked. And what should we be focusing on? If it's not these check boxes, what should be the goal?
How we feel. How we feel. We're focused too much on external, because we think the external is going to make us feel a certain way. And again, I know this from personal experience. I was very externally referenced. I lived in then. When I get the guy, when I get the raise, when I'm going to feel X, Y, Z. Our goals, any external thing, be it the marriage or the job or the losing the 10 pounds or whatever it is, we want it because we think it's going to make us feel a certain way. So many people, for example, suffer over being single. And the main reason they suffer is because they believe that being in a relationship would be better. And when they're in a relationship, then they're going to feel the confidence and the self-love and the security and the safety. But what we need to focus on is we can create any feeling we want to create right now, no matter what our external conditions are. And the more we focus on creating the feelings that we want to feel and cultivating the beliefs that we want to believe, then the more likely we are to attract those experiences, and be able to get more focused on what really matters. Because I think one reason that it's hard to get focused sometimes is because we're trying all these different things, like throwing a bunch of needles against the wall. Is this going to make me feel happy? Is this going to make me feel fulfilled? Is this going to make me feel safe? Is this going to make me feel confident? And we're just chasing all these different things rather than really zoning in on, how can I create that feeling inside of me right now? What do I need to believe? What do I need to feel? What do I need to think? How do I need to act? And that's where the focus needs to be. Did that answer that question?
It did, and it opened up a new one for me. I think that you're dead on about feelings. Is that we have these ideas that we're supposed to be a certain way, meet these certain benchmarks, and in doing so, we do these untruthful things, and not like lying things, but things that are not true for us. Well, maybe I don't want to be married at 25, right? Inauthentic things. How do we bring authenticity back to our living? How do we find that voice again, especially if we have a whole lot of other voices around us telling us what to focus on?
Well, it takes time. It's not an overnight thing. And so I guess the biggest thing is to be gentle with yourself. Like I said, our inner critic can really get a grasp on us, really get a hold on us, because it gets stuff done. And so we have to find that voice that's the inner coach, the inner parent, that voice of compassion, that voice of encouragement that tells us, it's okay if not everybody agrees. It's okay if people have their opinions. They're entitled to their opinions, but what people think of us is really none of our business. And so making that time to connect to that inner voice inside. For some people, it's meditation. That's one of the ways I do it. For some people, it's being out in nature. For some people, it's maybe exercising when they're just in their zone. But really making the time to listen, because here's the thing. Your inner critic will yell. Your mind will be loud. The voice of your inner knowing, your intuition, is quiet. And it's not really going to yell at you unless it's saying, don't walk down a dark alley, unless it really needs to get your attention for survival. But usually that inner voice is quiet. And so we have to get quiet and be intentional about that to really, really listen. And it takes some time to start creating that conversation. But with dedication, with commitment, and with the belief that you really have this inner guidance system within you, you will start to hear it. And you'll feel less tempted to defend your choices. Because a lot of the reasons we defend ourselves is because we doubt ourselves. If I know a choice is true for me, is right for me, if my intuition is guiding me to a choice and I know it's aligned inside of me, then I don't doubt myself. And then if people throw objections or questions at me, it doesn't trigger me as much. The reason why people's doubts trigger us is because we're doubting ourselves. If you want to not be swayed by other people's opinions, trust yourself.
It's so true, because a lot of times, especially when we're in situations that are high stakes or even crisis situations, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of people trying to give you input. And then our gut reaction is to look outside of ourselves for the answers. Well, what does Google say? What does so-and-so say? And it's hard to take the time and space to really check in with yourself and see if something feels right or wrong, or, as you say, in alignment. Do you carve out meditation time each day? How do you get focused as someone who's a coach? Yeah, you meditate every day. Is that how you do that?
Yeah, I meditate. I make sure I have my own coaches. I've had a coach since I was 21, different ones, but I always am making sure that I have people that are kind of, my...
So you have a coach?
My own blind spots? Of course. How can I be a coach without a coach? Yes, 100%. I always will. Always. And I have like a coach. I have a spiritual healer. I have my acupuncturist. I have like Team Kristin.
You have every category covered. Wow, that's impressive.
Well, I've learned that I love what I do, and I love serving a lot of people. But in order for me to do that, I have to make sure I'm supported. And I think this is where a lot of people, especially women, don't make time, because we're for our kids, we're for our spouse, we're for the world. But, who's filling our tank? And our self-care tank is not like our gas tank. We can't let it go to empty and then fill it up, and then go to empty and then fill it up, and then go to empty and then fill it up. It's so depleting to our nervous system and to who we are as women to have that up and down, up and down, up and down, and mostly down. And as multitaskers and as women who just are living in this time when we can truly have it all, we are capable of so much, but that doesn't mean it's healthy to do it all.
That's the truth too. And I lived most of my life that way. We have parallel careers. I was not a lot of people know this about me, but I was actually a modeling agent at one point. After I was a high fashion model, I went into casting and production, and then I was a modeling agent. I was one of the top agents at Ford, New York, actually. And I know what that life is like. It's stressful, and it's a really high stress position, right? But you must have learned a lot from that. You were actually very young when you were an agent. Mm-hmm. Trying to think what age I was. I guess I was probably late 20s, early 30s. What have you taken from that type of, because that type of job you don't just forget about. You must have taken some, things that you've learned from being an agent and applied them to your coaching, right?
Oh, sure. I mean, the tenacity, like the commitment, the never giving up. One thing that I learned in being an agent was you can't be afraid of a no, because you just have to pitch people all the time. Yeah. And you can't be afraid of a no. And so that's really helped me take risks in my life and not do something when I know I'm going to get a yes. I'm like, hey, the worst thing that can happen is I get a no. And getting a no is much better than the possibility of missing a yes. So that's one thing. Also, I represented people who came to Hollywood to make their dreams come true. And it was possible for a lot of them. And so just the never giving up and the knowing that your dreams can come true. And then working with clients, especially writers and creative people, I really had to coach them, and learn how to manage just humans and people getting rejected and the stress that goes along with all of that. And then, just kind of one takeaway life lesson is that, especially as a young woman in a very male-dominated field, how often I became a chameleon, how often I adjusted myself to be who I thought I needed to be. And that's why I think I really had a hard time with the job. It's because I thought that the way to success, the way to be liked, was to be a chameleon. And I've since learned that inauthenticity like that is really damaging to ourselves, to our sense of self. And so to really know who I am and trust that, and not bend and mold and contort myself to please others or to be something that someone else needs me to be.
It's so true, because sometimes I like that what you said about being a chameleon or being a contortionist, is that you kind of lose your definition of who you are and what you're about, trying to be this amorphous being that you think other people want to see. Now, from your career as an agent, how did you learn to refocus after a no? Sometimes no stops us, like, oh, well, what do I do now? What should I do next? How did you find the path after no? How did you find your focus after those no's?
Did we lose her?
Hello?
I think we might have lost Kristin.
Uh-oh.
Okay,
we really love you, Kristin.
Yeah, we had such great conversation. And you know what? I was about to bring on Nancy anyway, right after her. So we might as well continue on, I guess, as we were. And Kristin Hassler, you can find her at KristinHassler.com. That's Kristin with a CH, Hassler, HASSLER.com. Boy, she really taught us a lot tonight, and I can't wait to actually dive in more to her blogs and what she has to say on her website too, because she's very inspiring. And we have another guest here this evening too, who's going to tell us about reeling in our focus, and she's got a fascinating story also. Nancy Ganzekaufer is a business strategist and the founder of Your Business Partner Coaching. She is a supportive, direct, and motivated business strategist, helping stuck and overwhelmed entrepreneurs kickstart their businesses and get more sales. As a mom of 3 young adults and a successful business owner for the past 16 years, Nancy understands the unique challenges faced when growing a business and balancing a family. Through her hard work, encouragement, and most of all, her no BS leadership style, Nancy offers her clients programs to help them develop a successful business structure, an individualized marketing program, strong time management skills, and superior sales confidence. Welcome to the show, Nancy.
Thank you, Judy. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, well, we're happy to have you. You have quite a story. It sounds like, oh my gosh, the one that we'll learn the most from is when your youngest son was 5 days old, right?
Yeah, when I was the typical executive, as many of your listeners probably have experienced. I came out of college and went on to become working in a bank, in a back office, and I became a first vice president in a mortgage servicing department, managing about 150 people, married at 24, which I think you said you were as well. And I started having children. My first daughter was born, and she was very colicky. I know we've all experienced, a lot of us have experienced that. And she was in the daycare in my building, and I would go down a couple of times a day, and she was always crying, and I felt so much guilt over not being with her. 2 years later, when I got pregnant with my second, I decided to leave work, a nice package, to become a stay-at-home mom, which I always wanted to be, thinking I could be happy doing this. 6 months later, I wasn't so happy, just in my eyes, not having a lot of adult interaction, right? I remember walking the streets going, where are all the moms? Like, I wanted to talk to people, and I really didn't connect. My first child still was crying. She had a lot of sensory issues. My second child was born with food allergies, so I became very active in the food allergy network.
And you thought that was a pain in the butt. What about your third child?
Then my third child was born, and when I woke up from my third C-section, they said, he's got transposition of the great vessels, which is a heart anomaly, and he needed to be whisked off into New York City to have emergency surgery. So
that's crazy.
That was, It was crazy. And, you're in that hospital and they're going, do you want to be with the moms who have their babies or do you want to be with the moms who don't have their babies? And I'm like, put me with a new mom because now I'm an experienced mom and let me help somebody. So at 5 days old, he had surgery. He's 17 today, going off to college in a month and a half, and he's good as gold, a full repair. But he was quarantined for 2 years. So imagine having 2 young kids, 4 and 2.
Now quarantine because they were afraid he was going to catch something and while he was recovering. Oh my gosh.
I used to have to get another mom to bring my other 2 home from school, and actually they were 3.5 and 5.5. So one was in kindergarten and one was in preschool. And I'd stop them at the front door, whisk their shirts off, wash their hands and faces before they could go see their brother. Anyone who visited them in the beginning used to have to wear masks. Really stressful time. Nurses coming to teaching me how to give medicines, some panicked moments, and I thought, wow. I got married and told my fiance before I got married that I was going to be the president of the bank and I was going to have a nanny and I was going to be able to manage all
expectation hangover.
Exactly. I'm listening to you talking to Kristin and I'm thinking that's exactly what happened to me. I had my life all planned out. At 18, I was going to be married by 24, check. I had my first child by 30, check. I was going to be an executive of a corporation. It was like, check. And here I was in this whirlwind of, now my oldest ended up having severe social anxiety disorder, still managing food allergies for my second one, and my son now was quarantined. It was some time of life. But I kept saying to myself, you know what? One day at a time. Let me focus on what I have to get done today, and everything will be okay. And that's what happened.
Now, the name of the blog, you wrote all this out in a blog, and the name of it was If I Only Had a Crystal Ball.
Yeah.
Now, tell me, if you had a crystal ball, what would you have done differently?
Well, on tough days, I go, would I have ever had kids and gone through all this, which I'm sure all of us have felt at times. But my kids are the love of my life now. I think I would not have changed a thing except I would have loved their health to be stronger. But soon after my son was out of quarantine, I quickly started my business called Expressive Living, which was a art consulting firm. I started out selling my mother's artwork, sticky tacking art to the walls of friends and family's homes, and they would come and have a little party, a little wine and cheese, buy a couple of pieces of art, and that was satisfying my need for adult interaction. I was enjoying myself. My husband at the time, I am now divorced, would watch the kids at night and give me the relief that I needed from that stressful day, and I started this little side business. And I got a lot of doubt from everybody. What are you doing? You're working 60 hours a week and you're making $50. I'm like, yeah, but I love it. I'm on to something. I'm on to something. I kept saying that to myself as I was getting, mildly made fun of. You're reaching outside everyone's comfort zone. You're doing something different and they don't see it, but I knew I was on to something. And then one day an interior designer walked into a party. And she said, that's the perfect piece of artwork for my client. Can you bring it to the house? I said, absolutely. Got to the house, can you help us frame it? I'm like, sure. I knew nothing about any of this. I was a business major. I was a businesswoman. I was a first vice president, stay-at-home mom, and now I'm getting into the art world. Over the years, I said yes to everything, and I learned. I learned everything I needed to know to 16 years later, Expressive Living, which I actually closed this week because I now do the coaching, has been one of the primary art consulting firms to interior designers all over the New York tri-state area. They would call upon us to go and do a shop-at-home service in the home. We'd carry 500 pieces of artwork, carry 2 cases of frames, and do it all and select it on-premise in their homes. It was a very unique service, something that was missing in the market. So I was able to find that niche, fill that niche, and have 2 employees.
Wow, that's fantastic. No, that is really great. To have 3 kids, first of all, going through all that you went through with their health and everything, and then having a business. Do you think having a business helped you focus on raising them a little bit in some way?
Absolutely. See, what I always knew about myself is if I was doing something for me and something for my career, it made me a better parent because I could make my hours. I worked from home. My employees worked here, but limited hours. So when my kids got home from school, they were no longer here. And I could then, put them to bed, and I could work a couple of hours on my computer at night. And I loved it. It was exactly the balance I needed to kind of put everything else in perspective, that this was all okay. I was raising my kids. I was a good mother. I was taking them to their play dates and doctor's appointments and activities. As we all know, we're all chauffeurs. I was getting all that done. Plus, I was building a business at the same time that I knew would serve me well when I was done raising them. So at times, and I think this is what business moms don't always give themselves a break. There are times where you focus more on your business because you're able to those weeks or those days, and other times where you have to focus more on your family. And that's okay. You may not grow at the same rate as somebody who's 100% focused on their business, but you have to make that okay for yourself.
Yeah, I guess that comes back to what Kristin said. I think she was actually ending with this, is that you have to treat yourself, gently. You have to treat yourself right. And I've always been the kind of person that's very hard on myself and an overachiever. And, I exhaust myself to the point of depletion. And then I fill the car back up with gas and then I keep going. And, that's just not a way to live. And it's not a way to really truly focus on, what your passion is or what you're doing, right? I mean, it's like a basic extremes of up and down and all over the place. So when you have a client and they are thinking about changing careers or, changing something major in their life, maybe even going through a divorce or something like that, what are the top 2 or 3 things that you would tell them first to kind of, I guess, nail down before they venture out into that new career, or before they, tell their husband or wife, we're getting divorced? What is the foundation that they need to have first?
Well, let's take those as 2 separate things, because I have clients that match both those profiles. So
okay.
I got contacted by a client who's leaving a very high-paying executive job. She's working in New York City. I'm here on Long Island, and she found me, and surprisingly enough, we're right in the same town, and she didn't even know it. She has 2 young kids, and she said, I want to leave this job, and I want to start my own business. And I said, okay, before you do that, let's really think about how you envision your life 3 years from now. What do you want your core values to be? What do you want your focus to be? Right? And she said, I really just feel like I'm not spending enough time with my kids. And I said, okay, so you also know, though, that building a business takes time. It's going to take you really, the reality is 2 or 3 years till you're making a profit. So you're able to sustain yourself financially during that time. And she was a yes. And I said, and then how do you perceive a working mom, to make sure that she would be okay with herself for taking that time for building her career? And her focus was right on. And what I assured her, which is something I didn't know when I was doing it, there were times I had a lot of guilt, like, what am I doing to my kids? Right now I'm taking a phone call and I should be spending with them. I think as parents, we have a ton of guilt, right? We're at the computer. Maybe we should
totally
do a second bedtime story, and, you're making, your husband's doing it, but maybe it should be me. And you get all this guilt. And I have to tell you, now having a 23-year-old, a 21-year-old, and a 17-year-old, they have watched me build my businesses and be a professional woman and balance it all. But at times, again, it's a teeter-totter. You're not always 100% great at everything. And they all are fabulous hard workers. They all understand the value of hard work. And they see that, and I'm not touting you can do it all. You certainly can't do it all the time. There are times where you do one thing better and other things not as great. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you figure out what your core values are, and you're giving some time to each of those every day. And I think when you become this busy, you say no a lot to things that aren't necessary, that aren't addressing your goals, right? When it comes to focus, how much time are you spending on the phone talking about nothing? How much time are you spending in front of the TV? How much time are you spending on social media? And are those serving your goals and where you see yourself? And believe it or not, the time management seems to be what I work a lot with people on.
I bet. Kristin, how much time do you spend on social media?
Well, for me, I spend a lot because I have to constantly get people to remember my name and my face.
I know, and you're
that's
all
what
over
I'm
the place. I admire you.
And that is part of your business.
Right, because I'm selling my name and my face. So it's
but
constant.
that's almost like a job in and of itself. Like you produce, you direct, and you have an acting career. But social media is almost another facet of a career right there. And it's hard to know when to stop that, because I'm the same, Kristin, in the way that, I get on there and I start, and one thing leads to another, and I realize I'm getting views and this and that, and it's very addicting. I'd actually like to know how you focus in on controlling that, like how you do you say, okay, I'm going to spend 20 minutes on social media today, and then I'm moving to your next thing? Because you seem pretty good about that, the list and categorizing and all that type of thing.
I definitely, do you ever read the book, The Pomodoro Technique? It's like 25-minute blocks. When you feel overwhelmed, you just look at everything in 25-minute blocks, and you don't let anyone interrupt you. And it's when I started implementing it, it was a time when I felt overwhelmed. And I remember now, I do have a boyfriend. My boyfriend came in the room, and he's like, I wanted to ask you, and I put my hand up, and I'm like, I have 7 more minutes in my 25-minute block, and I need to get this done. So when I start to feel like there's so much on my list of things to do, I'll start blocking 25-minute intervals. And what I say to busy moms is think about how many hours you are awake in a day. And you can block 5 25-minute intervals for those things you really need heavy focus on, and that really helps. In addition, I happen to get up very early. I'm up at 5:30. So I'll wake up at 5:30. I'll have my quiet time. Sometimes meditative time. Sometimes I jump on my social media. Sometimes it'll be my exercise time, but no one else is awake. And I'll do a 25-minute block on social media. But for me, like Kristin, I need to be on social media a lot. It's part of working on my business when I'm not working in my business. Working in my business is when I'm working on talking to clients, doing interviews, doing my accounting. But I have to work on my business so that I continue to make the connections. So that is part of my marketing. Social media is for socializing. So
yeah, no, and Kristin,
I have that.
It's part of yours too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is, because
Do you ever get taken away with it?
I try not to. I mean, for me, if anything, what I do is I look at it quarterly, and I look at growth of followers and growth of certain growth indicators, and I see, okay, well, this Pinterest is not doing so well last quarter. I need to focus more on Pinterest and maybe less on Instagram, or vice versa. So I really take not a very impulsive approach to it, while still trying to be candid and authentic. And I was thinking about this. You said something very interesting. You said on your website, creating 100% success without losing 50% of equity. How is lack of focus in that mix? How do we lose our equity due to lack of focus?
Well, that tagline is really because I call myself your business partner, right? So when a client hires me as a business coach, and I'm trying to get them to be more profitable, increase their sales, help them with their leadership and time management, you know how a typical business partner takes 50% of the profits, right? So So I created that tagline saying, I'm your business partner without taking 50% of the profits, right? So that's what that was created on. But I wanted to go back to something you said, Kristin, where you seem to take, like I take, a very logical step, a logical approach to your social media. I do the same thing. And the other thing I wanted to ask you, do you ever use a virtual assistant to help you keep up with some of your social media?
You know, I'm getting to the point where sometimes I have to schedule stuff because I'm going to be at set at 3 a.m. and I would really like the blog to hit at 10 a.m. So I have been known to use like Buffer or Hootsuite or apps like that to schedule posts and things like that, or the WordPress scheduler. So sometimes there is a little bit of automation to some of my workflow. And like, you know, last week, the new president of the DGA happened to be someone I met, you know, 5 years ago when I was in college. So I saw it when I was, because I read the trade papers every morning, Variety, The Hollywood Reporter. That's part of my process to know what's going on in the business that I'm in. And I just kind of stopped and wrote a random, you know, a very short blog about, you know, the new president of the DGA and how kind he was to me when I was in college, because I met him when I was in college. So, you know, sometimes, you know, you can benefit from automating, in my view, and I do a little bit of it. And then sometimes you have to really seize that moment when it's right for you.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Kristin, because, you know, I feel like what you and I do, you know, me too, with the TV, they'll call me all of a sudden and it's like, you know, get on set. We have, you know, want to get your opinion on this, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, can you get here in 30 minutes with hair and makeup done? And I feel like when we have those creative moments that we should seize them. Obviously not too much, but right. My question to Nancy, I guess, would be, you know, for people like us whose schedules are constantly changing and we're constantly on the go and that type of thing, how do we balance those creativity, those creative moments that we have with still staying on track, right, with what we're doing in the first place?
So this is what I do when it comes to social media. Then we can go on to other things. And I really do.
Well, we only have about 2 more minutes, so I'm sorry.
Okay, successful systems. Okay, so I have a virtual assistant who listens to my interviews, my podcasts, reads my blogs, reads my emails, and pulls out my voice and makes them into Facebook posts, Instagram
Listen
posts.
To that.
Okay.
Content,
so that
Kristin.
Is all scheduled. Okay, then those moments of inspiration, I go live. Or I make a post, so it's always my voice, but I'm getting help. And to have a scheduled post daily, 3 times a day on Instagram. I don't remember how many times a day right now. I'm on Twitter and on Facebook. On my business page, it's once a day. And then I just go look at the clock and go, you know what, I have a half an hour. Let me go onto my page and see if anyone needs any free coaching. Who wants to go live and get free coaching? And I go those moments of inspiration, or I just do a live to teach a quick something that I've learned about myself, something I want to share. I'm at a beach. It's beautiful. So those moments of inspiration, I do, but I always make sure that I have my voice going out there on a regular basis just in case life gets crazy and I miss that day.
Yeah, you see, Kristin, you can still have Kristin inspiration and be you too.
Absolutely.
Well, Nancy, thank you so much for all of this advice and wisdom. And oh my gosh, I can't believe how much I've learned tonight. I feel like I could write a book about this whole show right here. I want to stay up till midnight blogging about all the things that I learned on the show. You were absolutely fantastic. I love your story and everything that you've, taken out of your personal story and put back into your business to teach others, to be more effective and more organized and to really, build their businesses the proper way.
Yeah,
Nancy,
know what? You can do it. You can do it. That's all.
Totally. And anybody listening to that, I hope they hear you.
I hope so too. Thank you so much.
Yes, of course. And Nancy, where can we find you? Is it NancyGanzekaufer.com?
That's where you can find me. I started coaching 2 years ago, and that's my coaching site, NancyGanzekaufer.com.
Nancy, I want to spell GANZEKAUFER.
Yes, that's it.
And that was from my head. Kristin, aren't you proud of me?
That was good.
I'm extremely proud of you.
Oh my gosh. I have so much fun with you on the show. Thank you, Nancy, so much for coming on. And Kristin, as always, it's just such a blast being with you on the show. And everyone else that's listening, thank you for tonight listening. And thank you for listening to our replays. Have a very happy July 4th. Stay safe. And we will see you on the flip side in July.
You're listening to What Women Want with Judy Goss, only on LA Talk Radio.